Hey guys, welcome back to 30 Days of JavaScript. We're on day 5. So on day 1, we created the hello world function. On day 2, we did the counter problem. Day 3, to be or not to be. Day 4, counter 2. And on day 5, we're going to work on apply transform over each element in array. Let's get started. So this is Leetcode 2635. Apply transform over each element in array. It's an easy question. Shouldn't be too difficult. Looks pretty straightforward. Let's read it. Given an integer array R and a mapping function fn, return a new array with a transformation applied to each element. Looks similar to some of the problems we've solved previously. Let's continue reading what the problem's asking. The returned array should be created such that returned array at index I is equal to fn with parameter R index I, comma I. Okay, please solve it without the built-in array.map method. Okay, let's reread this one more time because it's maybe when you first read it, if you're someone who hasn't worked a lot with JavaScript in the past, it might be a bit confusing, like, passing a function into a function, transforming and mapping arrays and things like that. But it's just another day for a JavaScript developer. Sometimes you just got to read the question 2 or 3 times, all right? Given an integer array R and a mapping function fn, return a new array with a transformation applied to each element. The returned array should be created such that returned array at index I is equal to the mapping function fn with parameters R at index I, comma I. All right, so we're essentially mapping the input array onto a new array without the array.map method. I think that's what the question is asking. Let's take a look at examples 1 through 3 to get some specific details about what's required. And we're going to solve the problem in TypeScript, which is very similar to JavaScript. They go hand in hand, but that bit of type checking is always useful. So we're going to solve 30 Days of JavaScript challenge in TypeScript. Example 1 gives us the input array 1, 2, 3, and the mapping function is function plus 1, input n, returns n plus 1. The output there is 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we add 1 to each of the values. That makes sense. It seems kind of like a pretty straightforward ask to map the input array onto a new array and return the new array. The explanation they give is const new array equals map with input R, comma plus 1, and you get 2, 3, 4 is the output array. Example 2, we get array with values 1, 2, 3, and the mapping function is plus 1. We get inputs n, comma I, we return n plus I, not n plus 1. So it's a bit different than example 1, and we get output 1, 3, and 5. Okay, so we add the index. So 1 plus 0, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5. It's a bit tricky, but it makes sense after you kind of understand what the mapping is doing. And then there's example 3, which returns 42. All right, so that's kind of a fun third sort of map that where no matter what the input array is, we return the value 42. I don't know why we'd need to do that, but these problems are meant to be fun and challenging, not necessarily have real world applications. All right, guys, I'll let you pause the video and attempt to write this code in JavaScript or TypeScript. I'll show you the solution in TypeScript in a moment. And as a hint, there are only 7 lines of code. It's a simple map function. There's going to be a for each loop there. So those are your hints. All right, you can pause the video and give it a try, and I'll show you the solution in a moment. Hey guys, welcome back to Tech Guides TV. So here is the solution in TypeScript. Function map takes an input numbers array and a mapping function fn. And those are the types. The input array is a number array. Mapping function takes parameters and an I, which are both numbers, and that's arrow function notation there, and the return type is a number. A numbers array. Okay, so the return type there, the return type of the mapping function is a number, and the return type of the map function is a numbers array. Okay, you guys see that? There's it's a bit confusing, but there's a parameter type as well as a return type there. Alright guys, if you need a TypeScript refresher, definitely check out the TypeScript tutorial on Tech Guides TV. But that's pretty much line 1 in a nutshell. So we get input numbers array and the mapping function into our map function, and now we have to map the numbers array onto a new array. So anytime you have sort of a array mapping like this, it's good practice to start with a fresh array. So that's what line 2 accomplishes. Const ans, which is shorthand for answer, or like the answers array, which is what we return in line 6. In line 2, we set a new numbers array equal to empty array. We label it ants, and then we push, we run a for each loop with our input numbers array, which pretty much just goes through from I equals 0 through the end of the array, from I equals 0 to n minus array.length minus 1, right? That's going to be the last index. But with for each, it's just a comma index. We map based on the mapping function, right? So ants.push, and that's where we use the mapping function fn with parameters a comma index. So when that is satisfied, then it resolves to truthy, right? Truthy and falsy, and that's how we know that we push that value onto the answers array, right? We work with the input numbers array, and we push onto the answers array, and we use the mapping function to guide us. And then after we're done the for each loop for each of the elements in the array on line 6, we return our answers array. Couldn't be any simpler than that, guys. And if we were to solve it with array.map, it would be even easier, but pretty much we implemented the mapping function from scratch on our own. So now you know how mapping works in JavaScript. You take the input, map it onto the output, and it reaches acceptance criteria, which is always nice. So it returns n+1, so 1, 2, 3 becomes 2, 3, 4 as expected. The mapping function there guides that, informs how to map the input array onto the output array. We add 1 to each of the n values. And in case 2, let's see if we reach the expected output. All right, this one's a bit tricky. We add the index to the value. So 1 plus index 0 is 1, 2 plus index 1 is 3, 3 plus index 2 is 5. And in case 3, we return 42 for each of the outputs. So we sort of rewrite the array with all 42s. All right, guys, hopefully this was helpful. Tune in again tomorrow for another 30 Days of JavaScript challenge.